Yeah, what's up guys? So I thought I'd do just a quick basic video on building muscle and personally what I think is the best way to do it and mistakes I think the other people make. Now, I haven't been training much for the last 10 years and I had to quit. I didn't really, it's like, no, it wasn't really quit. I go 2-3 months of the year, but when I was 17 years old, I deadlifted 285 kilos 5 times in a row, and on the last rep my lower left back muscle gave in and it felt like 1,000,000 trillion little bubbles escaped that muscle and it tore it, and it took about 6 months to repair, and I wasn't able to do anything for weeks. It was completely destroyed, and ever since then I've had not anymore so much. In the last 4 years or so it's kind of gone, but even during the military when I was there it was really rough, and that was maybe 5 years. How many years after was it? But so I was very large, and I would start my chest training. If it was a chest training day, I would start off doing 11 reps of 100 kilos. So for a 17-year-old, that was quite good. 120 kilos, I had like 2.5. So I wasn't like, with a lot of the muscle groups, I wasn't exactly like ultra strong in the sense that I could lift like super heavy. But with the weights that I was really comfortable with, I did very, very high reps. For example, 100 kilos on a bench press 11 times in a row, just to start the training with no warm-up. I never warmed up. I never stretched before. And the reason for that is because I think if you start warming up, you're tiring yourself out. You can't do maximum. You know, so I never stretched, I never warmed up, and I never felt necessary, and I don't think it had anything to do with my injuries. So straight away what I want to say is, like, when I was training chest, see, I almost never trained small muscle groups like the triceps or the biceps. I just let them grow by themselves. And what I would do is I would structure my week in such a way where I was basically mostly just doing like the large muscle exercise. Like, for example, upper body. I would train my upper body until my biceps were destroyed. So I wasn't even doing curls with my biceps. I wasn't training my biceps. I was just training my upper back for 3 hours straight, you know, drop setting everything, supersetting everything. It was a mixture. It was like superset drop sets. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. It's like, for example, with the chest training, when I was doing chest, it was chest until my triceps don't work no more. And there's a good reason why you don't want to interrupt your chest training or your upper back training with the small muscle groups. If you're doing upper back, you do your first set on upper back. Oh, good. And then you're bored and you're waiting around. And so, fuck it, I'm going to go do some bicep training. What happens now is you've just weakened a supportive muscle. Your biceps are supporting your workout for your upper back. If you make your biceps weak while you're training your upper back, you can't max out your upper back, because what's going on is now your biceps are no longer capable of holding the weight, the minimum weight even, that you're required to train your upper back. It's the same with the chest. If you start training your triceps too early in your chest workout, you're never going to grow muscle in your chest, because you're sabotaging your own progress by weakening these support muscles before you can get the most out of your chest training. And so it's the same with legs. It's the same with what I found with legs is I would do a really, really hard workout, and then I would jog for like an hour and a half, 2 hours afterwards. And that was insane. Your legs don't work after that. But one thing I also avoided doing is going above certain weight limits. I was not as interested in lifting super heavy once or twice and doing maximums. I was much more interested in finding a very high weight, but not maximum, and bringing that out to maximum reps. So being able to do, you know, maxing out the machines, but doing tons and tons and tons of reps. And so, for example, the chest training, I would start off, I do 100 kilos 11 times or 12 times or 10 times, depending on the day. I put it out, and maybe I wait like even 15 minutes or something before I rest. So I wait as long as it takes, no rush. You wait as long as it takes until you can do that same shit again. And then maybe the next time you do is 8 times in a row. And then you wait again, 10, 15, as long as it takes. And then you do 6 times in a row. So I would do, almost 10 sets at 100 kilos. And the first set was at 100. I would do like 10 sets. And the first rep was like, 10, 11, 12 reps of 100. And I would stick to 100. And after I'm done with that max, that's when I'm still doing bench. That's when I start to remove weights. So I'm starting to do the drop setting. So basically at that point, I'm maximizing the reps the maximum weight limit. So once I've done with like this, 5th or 6th set at 100 kilos, where I can only do like 4 or 5 after a long break, now I'm dropping weights. I'm going 80, right? Then I do as much as I can. I drop the weight to 60. I do as much as I can. I drop the weight to 40. I do as much as I can. I drop the weight again to 20. I keep dropping weights until there's like basically a bar left. And then you just go on the floor and you do push-ups. And that's one set. And you do that until you're fucking wrecked. And, once you're wrecked, that's when you start doing other muscle groups like, the upper, those incline or decline bench press, and you start to involve other movements like the flies and stuff like that. And so that's how I basically trained all my muscles. And I never had to train biceps or triceps, right? I never had to train them. I mean, I don't know, it's not very obvious. And I haven't been to the gym and I haven't trained these muscles for a decade, so there's a lot left. But that's without training them. And right when the workout is done and over, and you're completely destroyed, that's when you start doing the small muscle groups. So that's when you start doing like there's almost no energy left to even do more than a few sets of like tricep curls or something like that. But that's when you start doing those small muscle groups. And that's how I managed to get to the point where I was, 17, 18, 19, lifting like a ton in a set. So, and I remember these moped cars, because, you're at that age, you're not allowed to drive real cars. I had a friend who had a moped car, and I lifted the front end of his car off the ground, I don't know. I think that car weighs I don't know how much that is, but that's a few hundred kilos right there. That's like a couple 100 kilos lifting the front end of a moped car off the ground, deadlifting the front end of a moped car at that age. So in terms of diet, I saw the most gains as soon as I stopped taking supplements. I stopped taking all that junk, that crap. It's just shit. It's just a scam, all of it. I just looked at the protein shakes, all that shit. I just stopped doing. I stopped it all. And as soon as I stopped doing that, that's when I started getting huge gains. I started eating real food. Tons of meat, tons of eggs. At my peak for about a whole year straight, I started every morning drinking 8 raw eggs out of 1 cup. I broke 8 raw eggs into a cup and I just drank them all and went to school, high school. And I did that for about a year. And then on my way to school, I would stop by the butcher's or whatever it's called, and I would get a chicken. It's like those cooked chickens, and I would just have that with my lunch during the day. And then on my way home, I go to the gym, I do the training, and then when I get home, I don't eat anything after. I don't no post-workout, nothing, none of that bullshit, none of that shit. I just eat when I get home. I have a really large meal. Again, just maximize real food intake, and that's personally how I think I got such great results and how I became so strong. I was weighing almost 90 kilos with a 30-inch waist at about 182 centimeter tall height at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So, and I haven't been so serious about the gym after that. I got kind of bored. And then, of course, the trend kicked off. Everybody started going to the gyms. The gyms started getting lower quality. And the crowds at the gyms are just not, I don't know, it's just kind of weird being there nowadays. I don't really like it. I do some of my own training, but of course, I'm blacksmithing. I'm working on the farm. I'm doing a lot of other stuff. So I'm only now just starting to kind of get back into it seriously because I have a lot of knowledge that was, that I learned at that age. I read thousands of research papers. I just searched NCBI and everything like that. So I read science. I didn't read the bullshit from bodybuilding forums. I didn't listen to all the crap that people were saying. I just read the facts, and I implemented those facts, and it worked out really, really well. I was eating once a day already starting in 2013. I've been eating once a day ever since 2013. People weren't even talking about eating once a day, the once a day meal, for another 5 or 6 years. And I think that played a huge role in keeping all my muscle, keeping me really strong, And one of the downsides of that type of training that I was doing is that eventually got to the point where it took about an hour and a half of drop setting and pretty intense workout before my muscles even started getting anywhere with a real workout. I wasn't even getting DOMs after, an hour and a half of workout, and it became so difficult to actually get DOMs that I just couldn't be fucked anymore. It was too difficult to get anywhere. So it wasn't just a plateau in building muscle mass, it was also a plateau in being able to get the muscles to respond to that training. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Very, very dense muscles. I don't know the science behind that so much. I understand motor receptors and motor receptor fluctuation based off of your training, and I understand a lot of those kind of things. But I just thought that for a quick 12-minute video, I'd like to share what I went through at that age in order to get those results. And it allowed me to, for the next 10 years of my life, 12, 13 years of my life, have an amazing body, basically walk around like a Hulk without having to train. I didn't really need to go training. I didn't really need to go to the gym because my body was already, I'm already very large. I already have a lot of muscle. So I just need to, a couple summers ago, I slimmed back down to 29-inch waist. I lost all the fat. I've done that tons of times. All you have to do is just eat 2 eggs on a toast with a slice of cheese every day until you've lost all that weight. So every day, eat one meal a day, 2 eggs on toast, fried, however you want. You do that for as many months as it takes, and you'll lose all that fucking weight. And you're gonna slim down like crazy. And it happens very quickly, because once it starts happening, it happens very quickly. Simple as that. And I lost all that weight. And, I hadn't been to the gym. I did some little bit of jogging here and there. I did some, a few times a year I go to the gym just to get a pump and just to see what the condition of my muscles are so that I can feel like, am I really degrading? A couple years ago, it was like a February, or I think it was like a year ago, not this year, but the year before. I went and did, I went to do some chest training. It was the first time in 3 or 4 years, and I did 90 kilos 15 times in a row, Like, you don't really need to be stronger than that. Like, I'm fine with that, If I don't, so the body still retains a lot of that strength, and it's just really what it does is that it lowers the amount of motor receptors that are functioning, but you can get those motor receptors to start functioning again and increases your strength on the muscle mass that you already have. Now, I don't recommend that people take a break, but I felt like it was necessary to take a long break. I think it was necessary to I think it's very smart to actually take long periods of time where you are not training, because is it really healthy to train every day 3.5 hours? For me, the gym was a 4-hour thing. It was a quarter of the day was spent. And, that includes the sauna time, but, 2, 3, 4 hours of training, 1, 2 hours in the sauna, you're talking like a quarter of a day just to work your muscles to the point of complete failure where you can't even do one push-up, If you're doing chest training, don't leave the gym until you can't even do one push-up. That's the secret, really. You got to completely annihilate those muscles, but you also got to make sure that you don't overwhelm your joints and you don't overwhelm your bone structure with too heavy weights. So I've tried to avoid going ultra heavy with weights because I don't want to have hip surgeries. I don't want to have shoulder surgeries. I had lots of problems with ganglion growing because there's lots of fractures in my wrists, in my hands. There's a lot of, when I've had loads of x-rays because I've accidentally hit myself with a knife a couple times. I've dropped a knife on my foot. I've broken my finger here. I broke this bone, and I've had these things here. So I've had loads of x-rays, and the doctors have I've always been curious about my bone structure and stuff like that. And I keep reminding them, yeah, I was, bodybuilding like a pro, and then I've been shooting my whole life, Magnum 44s, and I'm blacksmithing almost daily basis, smashing steel all the time. So of course my bones are not going to look too good, or there's going to be some kind of, something to look at for. So, but yeah, so I wanted to take a break because I already destroyed my body before I was 20, completely ruined it. I had not torn it, but my left bicep, something happened to it where it was basically fucking useless. My wrists had all this ganglion, so I couldn't even grip things. Every now and then I'll have like a nerve or a tendon in one of my fingers pull fucking hard, and it's like, just by itself, like, what are you doing? Just by itself, it wants to crush. And this is, from living that kind of lifestyle. On top of all the farming and logging and stuff like that. So, but I think that type of training was perfect because it avoids a lot of the problems that you would have with your bone. Because you're not actually going super high, super heavy weights. Like 285 kilos is probably too much for anyone. And maybe even 200 kilo deadlift is too much for anybody. And you should find a workout where you can get the most out of it by, I would much rather be able to do 200 kilos deadlift 30 times in a row than 300 kilos 3 times in a row. You know what I mean? And I think it's better for your muscles too, because what we're doing is we're training our muscles. We don't want to break our bones. And so there's something to think about. There's like the first episode of muscle training, and we're gonna get back into it, and I hope you guys enjoy what I have to say, because I think there's gonna be a lot of knowledge you might not have heard in other places. I've never watched a single bodybuilding video. Well, maybe I did back in the day, but I haven't listened to any of that stuff. I don't watch any of that stuff. I never have. I've always preferred doing it my own way. So maybe I shared something that you haven't heard before. Hopefully you have, because maybe this is something that everybody's talking about. Maybe everybody is. Maybe everybody's already figured this kind of stuff out and telling you this thing. So maybe I'm not telling you anything new, but please comment. It's a conversation that I would like to bring up, because my experience is kind of unique in the sense it's not every day that a teenager deadlifts that much weight. And I think the world record at the time is actually a 16-year-old who did 250 kilos once. So 285 kilos 5 times in a row. That's a pretty big difference there. But then again, at that age, that pubescent age, those muscles grow pretty fast, and it doesn't take long to pack on a ton of muscle. So, but let's see where it goes. I'll keep you guys. I think I pretty much shared all my knowledge actually in one go. But peace out, and yeah, have a good one.